Ladies and gentlemen, let's try Gaming Theatercom video that has discussed the Xbox One's GPU again. So if anyone wants to go into the nuclear fallout shelter with me, you are more than welcome to, my good sir or good lady. So anyway, there's been a recent interview with the developers known as Press Play, and they have said the Xbox One's GPU, based on our experience, is very capable and I think will stay competitive for many years. Looking back at the Xbox 360 specs, it stayed competitive for many years, even though the specs on PC were much better. I also think there's a great future for a console being as versatile as the Xbox One. Not only does it support the widest possible definition of games, but it also works as the center of all entertainment in the living room. They also mentioned that they, of course, are going to be porting their game to the Xbox One and that it is going to take full advantage of it. This is, by the way, Max Curse of the Brotherhood, and this was an interview on Gaming Bolt. So, right away, the internet has immediately started to go crazy. Brotherhood is going to be running at 1080p and 60 frames per second. First of all, in the interests of being non-biased and all of that jazz, I'm going to read out a statement on Press Play's own website. This is on their About section, so you guys can Google that. We are Press Play. Press Play is an award-winning games development studio based in central Copenhagen. Since 2006, we have brought more than 20 games to multiple platforms for clients, publishers, and ourselves. In 2012, our studio was acquired by Microsoft, and we are now part of the Microsoft Studio family, along with awesome studios like 343 Industries, Rare, Lionhead, and so on and so forth and so forth. So here's the thing. The internet, various forums have already started to rage on this, and the basic consensus is this. Well, what do you call capable? Because there's many definitions of capable. For example, let's just focus like a laser on to their exact point of the PC performance with the Xbox 360 versus the PC's high end. Well, I would argue that if you've played something like Crysis 3 on the Xbox 360, and then you've played, say, Crysis 3 on the PC, and I'm talking like on the highest specs possible with a decent system, the Xbox 360 doesn't even slightly keep up. I'm sorry, it's just the case. The same with the PlayStation 3, because here's the thing: it just can't. It's a fixed platform. You can't say, well, I'm going to produce hardware that's like, £400 and 5-6 years later or whatever time period, that's still going to be able to keep up with a recent, gaming system. It's just not feasible. So, of course, once again, these are all really difficult terms. These are subjective terms that are being used because I can say, well, yeah, it keeps up if you're doing certain games, if you're, creating art styles, have a very interesting art style, that type of thing. But if you were to just go with flat-out power, it just can't keep up. It's that simple. You don't have to believe me on this. This isn't something that you have to be like, oh, okay, he's just saying that because he's a, PC gamer. I also play consoles as well, but, you can just check the numbers. Just Google the amount of T-flop performance of an Xbox One, then Google something like the R9 290X, which is very similar GPU architecture, graphics card architecture, to the Xbox One and PlayStation 4, and just look at the numbers. I'm not even going to tell you what they are. I'll just let you Google it, and you can just see that, we're not even talking like 2 or 3 times the amount. So that's the problem with this. Now, let's go with the other one, the implications with the PlayStation 4. One user on one forum was basically like, oh dear. And here's the thing, it's like when you start comparing different platforms like this, it becomes extremely difficult to know the exact performance. And obviously, this is exactly the same issue with Sony. Like, for example, as much as I have quoted the Killzone Shadowfall technology. And yes, I have read the entire set of Killzone Shadowfall white papers. I've also read the white papers on the GCN architecture which powers the PS4 and Xbox One. I've read about the computer architecture. I've read all the white papers on the AMD Jaguar, which of course is the CPU inside it. I even read the Hynix memory white paper, which of course is the RAM inside the PS4. And trust me, when you start looking at memory timings in a whole white paper, you're grateful when you finish. But on a serious note, here's the thing. You obviously, if it's a studio that's owned as a subsidiary, they're going to say stuff like this. Now, I'm not coming across as negative. I'm not saying the Xbox One's GPU is crap. I'm not saying the Xbox One's performance is trash. Because if you were to look at games like, oh, I don't know, say Rise, which in my opinion looks beautiful. Honestly, I mean, I honestly believe it looks very good. It just does. I mean, sure, it's running at 30 frames per second, and yes, there is that part of my brain that keeps saying, why isn't this running at 60? And, you know, I start to twitch and rock backwards and forwards slightly. But in reality, it looks good. It has a hell of a lot of detail. There's great lighting there. The textures look quite nice, and so on and so forth. I mean, you've seen the footage. Sure, it has a few glitches here and there, but it's a launch title for to be honest with you. In my Killzone Shadowfall, you can check out Killzone Glitch on the channel, and I basically fell through the world at one point. And I was literally running through the level. So yeah, launch titles have glitches. Surprisingly, games do. So that's the issue with all this. Personally, you guys know the specifications if you're regular viewers. I honestly believe that the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4 and the PC are all going to accelerate quite rapidly in the next 6 to 12 months, mostly because of new technologies that are being implemented. For example, new texture streaming technologies, which are going to be rather integral, I would probably use the word, for the Xbox One in particular, mostly because of the ESRAM. And that's the issue, because a couple of developers already discussed about the ESRAM and the fact that, forward rendering, the typical forward rendering buffer, isn't really what you want to be using with the Xbox One due to lack of RAM. And indeed, a couple of developers that I was following on Twitter and just general comments, they've been stating that the way forward is most likely going to be deferred rendering, which certainly has some advantages, but it of course also has some negatives as well. As, after all, there's always a trade-off. There's never, okay, well, this is just better. Generally speaking anyway, obviously sometimes there are, but generally there's always a trade-off. If you want better looking textures, then you're going to have larger file sizes. If you want compression, then, and so on and so on. Anyway, I'm rambling just a hair right now, so hopefully you found the video somewhat informative, and I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye for now.